I'm Eric Savitz from Forbes, and I'm here in Tucson at this economy conference, and I'm talking to Dan Bartlett about, Dan Bartlett from Hill & Knowlton. He's the president of Hill & Knowlton US. And we're going to talk a little bit about the media environment, particularly in light of the election that we just went through. You gave a talk today here at the conference about that and kind of the divisive nature of our current media. Tell us a little bit what you said on stage.
Yeah, what I found after running the communications operation in the White House for 7 years is, and really at the very early stages of social media and the dynamic, how that dynamic plays out in politics. And I think there was a lot of optimism early on that through this proliferation of technology, and obviously it was having a massive change to the media industry, but there was a belief that that change would open up all kinds of new sources of information for the voting public, in which they could inform themselves about the debate, make enlightened decisions. Whether you're on the Democratic side of the aisle or Republican side of the aisle, you always think there's bias in the media or elsewhere, and so this was an opportunity.
We are always biased in one way or another, of course.
And so there was this notion that information now is going to be so accessible, and that the debate could only be enlightened by that. Unfortunately, the proliferation of technology in communications in the political context, unfortunately, in my opinion, I believe has been an accelerant to the partisan atmosphere we're experiencing in our country.
Right, so that's an interesting observation, right? Because as you say, the expectation was, let 1,000 flowers bloom.
Correct.
All kinds of information will be out there.
Instead, what has happened is that politically inclined people now have a much easier time to go find views, find information that reinforces their views,
right,
not questions them. And so it's almost becomes a race amongst their communities to say, who can go find the more salient point to win the argument against the other side? And we all have our favorite, you know, if you're center right, you have blog postings that you constantly follow, Red State, Drudge Report, those things. In the center left, it's Daily Kos or HuffPost, those things. And so it is, the balkanization of our politics has only been somewhat made more efficient and easier.
I wonder if that's
but it's not
really,
a fault.
But I would just wonder whether, like, maybe we were hoping for too much. Like,
of
if
course.
you think about,
don't we always?
Well, but think about so in say the magazine world, right? In the world of political magazines, which most people don't bother to read, but some of us do. So you know, some people read the National Review, and some people read the Nation, right? And people who read the National Review probably would never read the Nation.
That's true.
And vice versa. And we're certainly seeing that in cable television news. People who watch Fox probably don't spend a lot of time watching MSNBC, and vice versa. Maybe there's a little more overlap in cable where you kind of want to know what the other team is having to say about some particular issue, but it's sort of the similar thing. You go and people are preaching to the converted everywhere.
Because we have this old view of thinking is like, people just, if they just had access to this information, they would think differently about it.
Right.
And now they have access to it, they choose to ignore it. Or maybe they don't, maybe they read it and then still, but what I have found and what campaigns are getting very good at doing, as we saw President Obama do, which is through mobility and platforms, a lot of things that are being talked about, data, we can now more precisely target these communities where they do go get their information. And what has been the problem for campaigns forever is this having to spend massive amounts of dollars carpet bombing, the public.
The eternal advertising, that John Wanamaker.
It is, and so
problem, right? We don't know which half of our advertising dollars are wasted, but we don't know which half.
Well, in politics, it was even worse. I mean, there was really no metric to try to follow that to see. And what we're finding now, and what President Obama's team should be commended for, is that they were far better at being very precise in that regard. So technology, in many respects, has been a powerful tool and a good tool. And I'm not necessarily, again, saying that the fact that it has made it more efficient to be partisan is necessarily a bad thing. A lot of people think this should be a contest of ideas, that we should, and if we can, if technology plays a role in it, so be it.
I mean, I guess there's always been partisanship. It feels a little more acid.
I mean, criticism of the media has been a constant in American politics going back over 100 years. Right. So I think it's more reflective of the changes going on in Washington, and one that we'll be discussing here at the economy, as well as more broadly is some of these more structural issues that the country is facing, I think, that has caused partisanship, namely how we're actually creating the congressional districts for our members of Congress. And that means we have too many congressional seats that are gerrymandered or drawn to a particular way to make sure that either a Democrat wins or a Republican wins. And we have literally, I mean, think about it this way. The approval rating of Congress right now is 13%, yet there was only a change in the House of Representatives by a handful of seats.
Right.
And so, and I know it's the old adage of everybody likes their own congressman, but not Congress.
Right.
But there's something more going on here. In the last 20 years, the last two redistricting we've done, we've let the Congress or the state legislatures draw these districts. And so when every member of Congress is waking up either as a Democrat, fearing being outflanked from the left, and a Republican being outflanked by the right, that means they're more concerned about their primary than they are about the general election. There's no incentive. In fact, there's a disincentive for a member of Congress to vote against his party because they're fearful of a primary opponent, not a general election opponent.